That's almost 80% loss, okay? So I'm the Russian bank. If I lose that kind of money on a pretty large amount, there is no way I'm going to stay solvent. So what do? I'm going to default on that obligation. Yes, my Russian government told me that I'm not supposed to make any payments, but a lot of these banks had subsidiaries in Cyprus, for example. They could have easily gone around the Russian government restriction, but they chose not to because they couldn't get those dollars at a cheap rate. So they defaulted on them. So what happened to our clients? Because the contract explicitly says if the forward counterparty does not honor that forward, I'm going to have to change those rubles into US dollars at market values. So instead of 635, I had to change them into dollar at 30, so you lost close to 80% of your investment. I had one client that I was begging to get out of Russia. He was managing the free cash of Formosa Plastics, which was a Taiwanese company. In 1998, they had $8 billion in cash. In those days, $1 billion was real money. And now junior traders trade with $1 billion. Those days, junior traders didn't have a limit over 50 million, for example. Our entire FX desk had a limit of $1 billion. Think of it that way, the entire desk. And you know, they had about $250 million invested into these kinds of products. I begged them, I said, it's coming. We didn't know when it was going to happen, but Russia was in deep trouble. This was about 6 years after collapse of Soviet Union. Yeltsin was president. He was a literal drunk, okay? Literal drunk. And Putin was basically his second-hand man, right-hand man. And there was a lot of corruption. All the Russian government enterprises were pretty much given to who are nowadays the oligarchs at dirt cheap values. If it's worth $100, they were sold at 10 maybe. Originally, they didn't worry about it too much because Russia had oil, gas, and gold as export products. Guess what happened to oil prices in 1998? $10, okay? Which is nowadays $100, right? Close to $100. And we knew it was coming, we just didn't know when. He said, oh, my stuff is going to expire in October. He promised he was going to put all that money into Turkey. You know, I would have made probably close to 20 million off of him, which meant $2 million bonus for me. That's why I wanted to get it. At DLJ, as long as the desk made money, you took roughly 10% of the money you made for the company as your annual bonus. I mean, I was already at 20, I just wanted to make it 40. And this happened, our entire desk lost money. So I only get my guaranteed, which was still $250,000, but it wasn't two. And that guy lost over $200 million. The only reason he's still alive, or I don't know if he's still alive now, but he was left alive, he was married to Boss's daughter. And I suspect that $8 billion was probably triad money. I mean, $8 billion free cash in a Taiwanese company. It was suspect. We didn't care. You know, as far as we were concerned, it was legitimate money. But that's the counterparty risk. So forwards are nice. You can customize them any way you want, but you have to take counterparty risk. So the forward that you make with, let's say, JP Morgan, and forward that you would have made, for example, with Silicon Valley Bank. If you had a forward contract with Silicon Valley Bank about 2 years before this time, when the bank went down, that contract wasn't going to be honored because they're not there anymore. So you take that risk. Third way is to use so-called money market hedge, which is essentially, I call it poor man's forward contract. If you remember when we were developing the formula for the forward rates, we use an alternative way of getting rid of the exposure. For example, suppose you are euro 100, let's call it 100,000 short, which means you will have to pay sometime in the future. Let's say 1 year for ease of argument. Obviously, if there is no futures contract available, you can have a forward contract. You can go to your bank and say, I would like to buy 100,000 euros, but I'm going to give you the dollars 1 year from now. What is the rate that you're going to give me? If there is no active futures market, you're going to get a big bid-offer spread. Your bank or counterparty will quote you a large bid-offer spread, bid-ask spread for A, they want to take advantage of you, because they are either the only or one of few choices you may have. You know, if you're not doing business with JP Morgan and you go to JP Morgan and ask for a forward contract, they would not be very eager to do it. If another bank asked them, they would be. But typically, corporations use the banks that they work with to get these quotes. So I know that this firm, little firm, comes to me, they just sold some stuff to Europe, or they imported some raw materials from Europe and they have to make payments. I know I have it. This being business, I'm going to take advantage of it. There is nothing wrong with that. Nobody has to do business with them, right? And B, they are concerned about counterparty risk. So if I sell these guys 100,000 euros, let's say at 110, to be paid 1 year from today, if 1 year from today, euro is trading at, let's say, 90 cents, as a firm, I have an incentive to say, I would rather buy it from the market, right? So there's a chance I could default on my obligation. They are concerned about counterparty risk, hence they increase their bid-ask spread as a compensation. experienced the first part firsthand. The last company that I worked for in Turkey before I came back to US, came to Kentucky. It was a brokerage firm, but it was also owned by a smallish conglomerate. These guys had contracts in Kazakhstan. They bid on certain contracts, so they were going to build something in the capital. But all the contracts were paying in euros. Okay. But most of their inputs were in dollar terms, so they were exposed to euro-dollar exchange rate. If euro went down in value, they weren't going to be getting as much in dollar terms compared to otherwise. I was in charge of the risk management in the brokerage firm to begin with, and as soon as I heard about this, I said, we should do a forward contract to manage that risk. They agreed, and we went to one of the state banks in Turkey, and we did a deal. And at the time, dollar euro was, I don't know, let's say it was over $1, 105. Within 6 months, dollar euro was trading at 85 cents. And the forward contract was making a lot of money. If we unwound the forward contract, we could have unwound that at a much lower rate. Obviously, they were theoretically losing money on their contracts, but the firm decided that they could use the cash that came from the profits from the forward contract, because the other stuff was 5 years into the future, so they wanted to get the cash flow. I said, okay. I call up the bank and ask for a quote to close the deal. They gave me a rate that pretty much reduced the money that I would have made by half. I said, I could go to a different bank and get a much better rate. And I said, why are you doing this? First time, they gave me a pretty competitive rate. And do you know what the guy said? But you made a lot of money on this deal. He wants to share it with me. I said, how do you know I didn't lose money somewhere else? Theoretically speaking, we did. But the company opted for the cash flow now. It was their decision. And I had to go through the head of the traders. We had to go through the general manager and get a market competitive rate. But if you don't have access to the general manager, and if you don't have good credit line with another bank, because you have to have a credit business line. Other banks may not have a business line with you. So forwards by themselves, unless you're a very reputable firm, may not be as advantageous as the futures. So let's think about